Hello again, my name is Craig. This is day 2 of Quarantine with Craig. Yep, this is the second day I am stuck in quarantine. And today I want to talk about a different topic. I'm going to return to Figma in a couple of days' time after I gave kind of an intro to it the other day. But today, this was something that was requested by Matt Brailsford. And it's something I've been meaning to talk about for a little while. And that's using Twitter seriously. I'm only going to go a little bit into it. And give you a little bit of advice and the things that I'm doing. I'm only going to do this. A disclaimer, why I've picked Twitter over other things, my Twitter stats, my tactics, and how I write tweets. They're the main things that I'm going to go over, and I'm going to start with the disclaimer. So I've got to start by saying, obviously, this is new to me. Twitter is new to me, taking it like this. I'm not an expert on Twitter, so you can kind of take my advice with a pinch of salt, but the stuff that I'm doing is kind of working, and I think you can achieve it with a little bit of effort, a little bit of time, and just sticking at using one platform rather than going between all the other platforms and trying to do all of the platforms all at once. And that kind of leads me into why I've picked Twitter. The reason I've picked Twitter is because I've always had a soft spot for Twitter. I've used LinkedIn. I do still use LinkedIn. I've used MySpace way back in the day, not anymore. I've used Facebook quite extensively. In fact, I used to do a lot of Facebook advertising. I don't tend to do much of it anymore. So yeah, I've used a lot of different social platforms. It's really difficult to get good at multiple ones of them at the same time. So I decided that I've got an Instagram, I've got a Facebook account, I've got LinkedIn, I've got all these other things, including Twitter. I'm going to pick one, I'm going to focus on it, I'm going to figure out the rules and the things and the ways to get good at it, and I'm going to get good at one platform and finally take one of the platforms seriously. I use Instagram, like I said, and I use Facebook very rarely, and I use LinkedIn, and I use Twitter, and I was using all of them at the same time, but I wasn't really focusing on any of them, and I wasn't getting good at any of them. So I decided earlier this year I was either going to quit all of my social media platforms or take them seriously. I don't use Facebook to any kind of reasonable degree, and I don't really use LinkedIn to any reasonable degree either. So I thought, well, what is the point in me actually even bothering to use these things? So yeah, I decided to take it seriously and finally do something about it. So I picked Twitter. I guess I picked Twitter because it was always my favourite, and it still is my favourite. And because of the way I work, I tend to write more than I do anything else. I like writing. I've always liked writing. And Twitter, I find, has got better engagement. And the other things that I really like about Twitter too is that I can jump into anybody's conversation on Twitter as long as it's public, and I'm not kind of shunned away from it. That's not seen as weird on Twitter. People call Twitter like a cocktail party. I can walk up to somebody in the middle of a conversation and start chatting with them about the thing that they're chatting about. And I think that's what makes Twitter really powerful when you get to start using it and using it regularly and using it a lot. That's one of the main tactics I use to build up my following and kind of build up people connecting to me, is by talking to other people. So I'm going to start by just looking at my Twitter stats. We're going to go over to here, I think, where I've got it open. Yeah, cool. So I just want to start this by saying one of the main tools, and I'm going to return to it in a bit, and I'm going to talk about it tons in this video. One of the main tools I've been using is Hype Fury, which is a great website, a great app to grow your Twitter. And the other thing is I've been using a course as well, Hype Fury's VIP course, which is run by a guy called Yannick, and I hope I'm saying his name correctly, and I'll put some links in the video so you can check him out. I've been using the advice that they've been sending me for a month or so now, but before I started that course, I'd signed up to Hype Fury anyway, and I was using Hype Fury. So I started using Hype Fury in February. Before February, if we scroll a little bit further down, you can see my January 2020 stats. I had -4 new followers, 15,000 tweet impressions a month, 142 profile visits, and 39 tweets. I only tweeted 40 times. And then the majority of those impressions, well, a lot of them anyway, came from one tweet, 1,000 impressions. And then if I go down to December, again, I tweeted 49 times and I lost 3 followers. I had a little bit better impressions this month, but 10,000 of those impressions came from one tweet. And then if I go down to November 2019, I got 10 new followers from 143 tweets. That was an anomaly. I don't know why that happened. I wasn't running any advertisements or anything, and I wasn't particularly following any kind of strategy. And then in October, I had 13 new followers. And this, I think, came from this main tweet here, which had 20,000 impressions, where I was talking about a new restaurant kind of thing that's opened in Barnsley, where I live. And it got a ton of impressions. It got 138 likes, 29 retweets, and 17 replies. It got a lot of engagement, and I think most of my followers came from that. So you can see here, and then September, -2 followers, August, 9 followers, but again, I had one particular tweet that kind of grew those followers. So previous to these last 2 months, I haven't had any kind of consistent growth. I haven't had these figures where I look at the top. If I scroll back up to the top, I haven't had all these things green ever when I've been using Twitter. One, because I've never focused on them, because I've kind of just used Twitter as something fun, really. It's never been a business strategy or a marketing strategy to seriously use Twitter. So I've not been focusing on these figures. And 2, I haven't had 10 new followers last month and then 15 new followers this month, only 18 days in so far. I've never had this kind of growth on Twitter. And it's from the things that I've been doing. Now you can see, if you just look at these two months here, let's just start with, I'm going to start with last month, which is February, because it's a total month. I tweeted 500 times. I got 1,000 profile visits, nearly 300 mentions, and 122 tweet impressions. These figures are much, much higher than I'd ever experienced in the past. And not only are those figures much, much higher, I produced much better quality tweets, much better quality content, which is part of the strategies I'm going to go into in a minute. So these 2 months here, as you can see, have been consistent growth, and I'm happy with the way that they're going. I feel like I've kind of worked out how Twitter works, and I can just continue to follow that strategy and continue to follow the things that I'm doing, which you can also follow, which I'm going to share with you now. So the main things that I've been doing, these are my kind of 4 tactics. They've come from Yannick, they've come from looking at how people are using Hype Fury, and they've come from looking at other kind of big tweeters. One of my really big influencers on Twitter is a guy called Ed Latimore. I've followed Ed for a really long time on Twitter. He is now at 110,000 followers on Twitter, and amazingly, he still doesn't have a blue tick. He's probably one of the biggest, he used to boast about it actually, one of the biggest accounts on Twitter with no blue tick. It's all organic growth. To my knowledge, he used to say this a lot, although he doesn't say it now. To my knowledge, he doesn't ever pay for tweets promoting or anything like that on Twitter, and he hasn't paid for any Twitter ads. His content, when you scroll down it, is all purely words, mostly purely words. He's a writer, so it makes sense. And most of his tweets, when you just scroll down his tweets, if I can find an example of one of these latest ones, they are purely text. They don't really link off to anything else apart from this tweet that does here. And when you look through his tweets, they're all quality tweets. It's something he's focused on from the very beginning. So one of my main strategies, first of all, was to focus on writing good tweets. And another thing I'm going to just put in here that I completely forgot to mention is focusing your content. So the first thing you've got to do is write good tweets. But how do you write good tweets? Well, you've got to think and look at what other people are doing. These kind of tweets here, this tweet by Rob O'Neill, you'll notice kind of the way that people tweet on Twitter, people who do it very well, they tend to write a tweet and it's just a solid tweet. It's a bite-sized piece of content that you can consume that's really interesting, and it kind of focuses a reaction to it. It's either a positive or a negative one, but there's usually an absolute statement inside the tweet that you've kind of got to react to. So I do this on my Twitter as well. If you look at some of my latest tweets, a tweet like this: an old idea is a proven idea, a new idea is an idea yet to be proven, focus on old ideas but experiment with new ones. I tweet all my main kind of tweets that I queue up are like this. They're very absolute statements that kind of expect a reaction. I don't always get a lot of reaction to these kind of tweets. I'm still only a very small account. I only have 1,500 followers, for example. But these kind of tweets are the ones that get people to read. They're a total content that's on Twitter. Don't try not to link off to other things too much, because when you link off to other things on Twitter, it reduces engagement immediately. Twitter just doesn't show your tweet to as many people. So try and stay on Twitter and use their methods of tweeting. Just basically text inside a tweet. Also, doing threads kind of reduces your engagement too, so be careful of using threads. But the kind of tweets that I write, you'll have seen them if you know who I am. I kind of write very, very specific tweets, and occasionally they get quite a lot of engagement. But like I said, because I'm quite a small account, they don't at the minute get that much engagement. But these are the kind of tweets that do get a lot of engagement. And obviously George R.R. Martin's tweet from the other day, 2020 was directed by me. I thought that was a brilliant tweet. Those kind of things where you're focusing on writing a very specific tweet help. The other thing that really helps is focusing your content. So Ed Latimore, for example, only ever writes about self-improvement or optimization or life improvement, that kind of thing, but not in kind of a way that you don't want to read, really interesting and really good ways. I write about design and marketing and logos and stuff like that. So I very specifically write about one thing. I also write about other topics that kind of surround it. So I tweet stuff like this as well. Fast progress is temporary progress. Slow progress is permanent progress. Another guy to check out who does this really well on Twitter is a guy called Well Paid Geek. I don't know him personally. I'd love to know him. I'm pretty sure he's based in the UK because I'd love to see some of his more of his tactics. But a lot of his tweets are not about coding. Some of them are about coding. So he's a guy who codes. He's got an email newsletter. He's got 22,000 followers. And he kind of does JavaScript courses. I think that's his main source of income. But a lot of his tweets are like this. Human beings are the master of adaptability. Be willing to adapt during these times and you could end up thriving. A lot of his tweets are not directly about coding, but people react to them. And then he throws in tweets like this, learning to code, and he talks about coding. But a lot of his tweets aren't about coding. I do the same kind of thing. I talk kind of about self-improvement or how you can make yourself better, and then I'll throw in a tweet like this. If you're showing any visual work to a client, always arrange a video call or an in-person meeting with them to discuss it. Never send designs over by email. So that's an example of a tweet where I'm talking very specifically about design or the topics around design. You'll notice the other tactic that I use with it as well is an absolute statement. I make a statement. It doesn't matter whether there's nuance to this statement or not. The first tweet that you put out always has to make a statement. It doesn't want to be wishy-washy. It needs to be specific and to a point. Even if you don't 100% agree with the thing that you're saying, the tweet has to be absolute. Otherwise, people don't engage with it. So you'll see these kind of things as well. If you hold a strong opinion, you better know the arguments both for and against. You'll get asked. Those kind of tweets are absolute. So I tend to tweet stuff like that, and that is the exact same tactics that people like Ed Latimore and Well Paid Geek are all using to grow a big Twitter following. So if you're interested in growing a big Twitter following, the foundation of your Twitter has to be a very specific topic focused to one piece of content or one area of content, and then you have to write good tweets. If you're a natural writer, writing good tweets are pretty easy, to be honest. Your industry usually kind of has a thread of stuff that people are always talking about. You'll get them from clients, you'll know about these topics. You can easily pick out just a snippet of that to tweet about and then tweet it. At the minute, as I said, a lot of my tweets don't get massive engagement, but the occasional one goes a little bit viral and it gets engagement, and that's the whole point. The point of these kind of tweets on your profile is when someone clicks on your profile, they can see that you're tweeting all about the same topic, and they can see that your content is really good, and then they'll follow you. Because if they look at your Twitter timeline and it's all bullshit, basically, people won't follow you. They'll just see your timeline, click off and not follow you again. So that's one big part of it. Your content on your Twitter has to be good. It has to be interesting for when somebody clicks on your profile, they need to enjoy it. Then the next bit, and this, to be honest, replying and engaging is probably the biggest tactic that I use. If you look at my Twitter, you can see under my tweets and replies the kind of amount of time that I spend replying to people, retweeting people, liking stuff. And that the reason I kind of do that is because I need, I was going to say I need people to look at my profile, which is one part of it. But the other part of it is that you need to build a community on there as well. And you need to get to know people. If you're not getting to know people on Twitter and you just kind of throwing your tweets out there into the void, nobody will ever find them. You've got to talk to people on Twitter. You've got to find accounts that you like. You've got to find other people with similar interests to you. And then you need to start talking to them. I comment on a lot of well-paid geeks tweets because I enjoy them, for one thing, and I add extra content in there that I think their audience might enjoy, so I might be able to just show you a quick example of that. The other day I tweeted well-paid geek with a little bit of stuff about stoicism, because his tweet, I'm mega into stoicism. One of his tweets basically kind of spoke about stoicism. So this was the tweet here. This was his original tweet. If I want to keep my job and pay the rent, I have to keep thinking about JavaScript. Ensured my elderly mother is safely in isolation, and now it's time to adapt and carry on. I replied to him with kind of classic Stoic philosophy. We can't control the outcome of the pandemic, but we can control what we do with our time. Classic Stoic philosophy helps right now. And then I got a couple of replies, some good engagement, and a couple of followers who followed me on Twitter after reading that tweet. So it's important, another tactic as well, it's important to go to big accounts, ones that are in your kind of area of expertise and your niche, or niche as Americans like to say, going into their accounts and just looking at them, commenting, but adding really useful comments, not just saying, yeah, I agree, LOL, adding useful advice and useful comments that they may retweet. This tweet was retweeted by Well-Paid Geek because he liked it, and then all his followers saw that tweet, and then they engaged with me, and then they followed me. That's basically the kind of whole loop around of how Twitter works. So you've got to engage with people. The other part of that, and this should be your main thing with everything on Twitter, is just adding value. So this tweet here, I wanted to help him out, and I wanted to help his audience out. I felt I had something to add, which was a bit of value. So I tweeted him, and it was good value, and he retweeted it. That's how the world should turn around, right? That's how everything should work. So even from a cynical marketing point of view, there isn't a quick and easy way to do this. Well, there is. You can just buy followers, but then they won't be engaged with what you write. They won't be your kind of people. And then when you want to turn them to look at something else or buy one of your courses or basically perform any action, they won't do it because they're not active and they don't enjoy what you do. So the only real way to build your followers is to do this kind of thing. Add value to people. I did a thing today. So if you go to my profile today, my pinned tweet is a coronavirus boilerplate client message. I've been seeing a lot of our clients over the last couple of days putting messages out, and I've been advising them to do it. Some of them didn't even know where to start. So I just basically got together with a copywriter that I know, and I'm going to give her a call out now. Lexical Lou, that's her there. Lou, I asked her to look over this, and she added some really great advice to this document. So I made this document all today, probably within an hour this morning. I just boilerplated it so anybody can use it, and I put it out as a tweet. If I just go back to Twitter, I put it out as a tweet here, and I pinned it to my Twitter because I really wanted to add value to the people on Twitter. And so far, it's got 4 retweets and 5 likes, and that's purely because the tweet is useful and it's valuable to people right now. I wanted to do it really because I know a lot of people are struggling with exactly this thing, knowing what to say in this crazy times that we're living in. So I made it quickly just to help those people out. So those kind of things on Twitter that really add value, that are really helpful, automatically spread really well on Twitter. So you've got to, everything you write should be focused on adding value. Even though your tweets are kind of meant to create engagement and they have to be absolute statements, they should still be useful to people. They should either be funny or helpful or advice or basically something that people can get value from. If you're tweeting something that has no value, stop and don't tweet it. Just bin it. Just don't write it. Just try and be helpful. And even being funny can be helpful, especially in these times that we're living in. But you need to focus everything that you're doing on being helpful. The other thing as well is you need to be active on Twitter. If you're going to go all in on Twitter, if you're going to finally take Twitter seriously like me, you need to actually turn up to Twitter, use it every day, and focus on it. I tend to probably spend an hour a day on it or something like that. I usually look at it on a morning, and then most of the morning I'm usually scanning in and out of it because I quite enjoy Twitter. And because I've built kind of a community on it as well, because I've been talking to people and interacting with people and actually tweeting people and people reply to me, it's actually a nice community to be in, you know? It's not like the other social platforms. So I'm really enjoying using Twitter. And if you get that kind of attitude, then it'll be really good for you too. I just want to finish on this by just reiterating all these things I've said, mainly the tactics. So the first tactic is writing good tweets. You need to focus your tweets around your topic idea. My topic idea is design and ideas and creativity and self-improvement to a certain point too. You need to focus on writing good tweets like this. The second thing is you need to focus your content, which I just mentioned. Replying and engaging is super important, especially when you've not got many followers on Twitter, but it's still important when you've got lots of followers. Adding value needs to be the 100% focus on everything you're doing on Twitter and across other social media platforms, and also being active. So the way I'm finding really useful for being active is using a thing called Hype Fury. So Hype Fury is an app. It's basically like Buffer or those other kind of things, but much, much better than Buffer. Buffer allows you to queue any kind of social content up. Hype Fury is purely focused on Twitter. And because of that, and because of some of the features it's got inside it, I find it's been the best thing for growing my Twitter. Because you come on Twitter you come on Hype Fury like this. What would I like to share? You can write a tweet. You can also do threads. So at the minute, I don't think there's another tweet scheduler out there that lets you do threads. So that's really good. And once I've queued this up, it goes into this big queue stream here that I've got. And at the minute, I've only queued up tomorrow. So I've queued up the majority of tomorrow. The other really cool feature about it is if I leave a space blank here, on my on my evergreen posts, I've got all my tweets that I've classed as evergreen. These tweets get retweeted when I've got nothing left in my queue. So even when my queue is empty, so this empty spot here and this empty spot here, so 9 p.m. tonight, this spot is empty. One of my other tweets that I've selected are evergreen that I want to retweet will get retweeted. So even when you don't queue things up with Hype Fury, it still ticks on and it still continues to do really good stuff. Hype Fury is great, and you'll see that I tend to have seven tweets queued up, and on a weekend I queue up 4 tweets. Beyond Hype Fury, I'm tweeting outside of it too. On average, I might tweet 10 to 15 tweets a day or something like that. The volume of tweets does matter. I haven't got figures on that, but whenever I go over 100 tweets per month, it seems to massively increase my engagement on all the tweets I'm tweeting. Now I'm tweeting, have I still got my analytics open? Yeah, so now I'm tweeting 500 tweets a month. It seems to massively impact my engagement, but they're all quality tweets. Obviously, if you're tweeting and they're not quality tweets, I don't know whether it impacts your engagement. I haven't got much proof of that. It's just an inkling and just kind of my own opinions of seeing my growth on Twitter, where the amount of tweets obviously does matter, but they need to be quality ones. So that's it. That's a quick whirlwind tour through how I'm using Twitter. I hope that was really helpful. It was mainly for Matt, Hi Matt. Because he's been seeing the things I've been doing on Twitter and maybe being a bit curious about what I've been doing. If you've got any other questions about how I'm using Twitter or I've missed something off, please ask me. Just go over to Twitter. This is my Twitter, twitter.com/Craig Burgess. Go over to my Twitter and just tweet me and I'll reply to you and I'll give you any of the other advice. I'm trying to, every couple of weeks, post my progress on Twitter and help anybody out that wants to achieve the same thing, because I think Twitter's a great platform to grow an audience on and to actually use properly and seriously. I think I've already, in 2 months, had a really solid lead into Genius Division from using Twitter like this. So it does work if you stick at it over the long term. But your goal shouldn't be just to get money out of it. The goal should be for the right reasons, and that is to add value. Right, so I'll be back tomorrow. Anyway, that's the end of today. Hopefully I've managed to hit about 30 minutes again. I don't know what I'm talking about tomorrow yet, so if you do want me to cover any kind of topic across branding or logos or marketing or Twitter again, or design's obviously what I do on my day-to-day basis. So any of those topics, hit me up on Twitter, let me know, and I'll see you tomorrow. See you later.